All right, we are live. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Ezra. This is Michael Ivy, aka Chemist.
The one, the only.
That's it. And we are here on behalf of We Are Memphis Music in collaboration with Future Everything, Memphis's premier electronic music label, in a celebration of Black Music Month. So before we get things started, in general, we've got Qemist did some live performances for us, all improv, which we're going to intersperse throughout this conversation. In between sets, we'll be chit-chatting about electronic music. Once again, it is Black Music Month, which is a celebration, so we're going to be talking about Black contributions to the genre, Memphis's role in the genre, and much more. So stick around with us. Like I said, a lot of great music, a lot of great conversation, and let's kick it off.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me, guys.
Man, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. I have forgot to mention that we are at the Memphis Music Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this, I guess this piece here is like, yeah. Yeah.
great stuff, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All of that was recorded one shot, one take at my good friend Struly's studio. And it was just a blast to do that and really have a purpose for just making some on the nose, on the fly kind of music. So
I asked you before. I was like, "Do you know the song names in order?" Ain't no song names.
No, there's no song names. I'm sorry, those are all
just working.
Every piece of music that we're going to listen to tonight was all improv. It was all just hardware synced up, and just went in and kind of went off top and decided to make some really fun, like quick 5-minute tunes.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Very impressive. Well, first things first, just kind of tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who you are, how you first got into music, and then I also want you to touch on future everything for the folks who aren't familiar.
All right. Well, for the folks that don't know, I'm Michael Ivy, aka Qemist. I'm a DJ and producer in Memphis. Well, I'm a producer first, DJ second, and a musician as well. I started making music when I was 11 years old. My mom put me in a piano recital class in the 7th grade, 6th grade, one of those grades. And it kind of just flourished from there, my passion for music. I've been making electronic music since I got my first computer, and I think I was like 13 or 14 years old when I first really started making that kind of like that first step into the realism of making music for real. And ever since then, it's been kind of like an uphill battle, but definitely rewarding. And yeah, I'm definitely doing that more often. So it's important to just know how much it takes, because now I'm learning that from back then when I just had that small ideascape, but now it's bigger. So yeah.
Well, of course, there's levels.
Yeah, there's levels to it, and Future Everything was one of those levels that I really needed to reach. I think I met Future Everything I met Micah, who is a co-owner of Future Everything. I met him when I was, I want to say like 18, 19, something like that. I'm 25 now, so it's been a while. Yeah, we go back for a little minute. And that was like after I had moved around in a couple of scenes in Memphis, just trying to find my footing for electronic music, and really who had like an established base that I could kind of work off of. And Future Everything, I think we met at like a Xavier Wolf concert a while back, and that's how we kicked it off. Mike was like, "I really enjoy what you do." He heard about me prior, so that was really important too, just like have that, general idea of who I was. So, and after that, I think we released my first EP, and that was Warm Volume Theory on Future Everything, and that was, I think, in 2017. So, yeah, ever since then, it's just been release. Got a couple of their compilations done with some of my tracks on there. Been working with a bunch of different other artists in our roster too. It really opened the door for that. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's what I was about to ask about, the collaboration.
Yeah,
y'all cooking together.
Oh, all the time, honestly. We cook a lot. It really opened up my eyes to more collaborative efforts too, because we, I think our last compilation that we did, Future Everything Volume 5, featured a lot of collaborative efforts from everybody on the roster. Me and Struly made the first track, which is Cuckoo. It's just a collaborative effort for us. I think one of our first legit collaborative efforts, but we had been jamming, prior to that for like years now. And just really building our own kind of like studios up together, parallel to each other, and kind of like intermingling every now and then. Like I'll go over to his place and we'll jam in his studio for hours on end, and it just kind of like opened the door for more of that. So yeah.
Heard. Well, before we get back to the music, one more quick thing is, of course, electronic music is quite broad, and I don't need to put you into a box, but of the hundreds of subgenres that fall under that umbrella, what kind of lane do you see yourself in? How would you describe your own music?
So I would describe it's definitely fluid. It's a lot of everything that I'm influenced by, and I try to funnel that into one cohesive thing. But if I did have to choose, I would probably be under the house umbrella, the footwork and juke umbrella as well. Really, all of those are like native sounds of Chicago, but I was very influenced by those sounds and prior to my first Future Everything release, I was doing a bunch of footwork music, which is very fast paced, like very dancey, melodic, but forward thinking with crisp kind of beat patterns and arrangements and things like that. So yeah, that's what I would put myself in. It's like the footwork juke house. So those three right there.
That'll work, man. Well, we'll get back to the music.
Yeah, so we can cue up that next one if you'd like. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great stuff, man. So we were clearly outside of the studio on that one. Where were you for that? Segment?
I was at the complex, the collective, or formerly known as the collective, now known as Tone.
There you go.
Granted me the space so that I could do that for it, and I do appreciate you. Shout out to Dane for keeping up with me that night, because I'm sure we went well over the time we were supposed to, but you know.
Yeah, shout out to that team in general, and
they're doing big things. So
no doubt. We'll get there.
We'll get
there. Well, very cool, man. So obviously, once again, this is part of our celebration of Black Music Month. I think you and I understand there's not a genre, especially one out of America, that doesn't probably begin and end with Black people. But I want you to tell me a bit about the history of electronic music from Detroit to Chicago. I understand you're an artist and not a historian, but I know you know your stuff.
You gotta know where you're coming from to know where you're going.
Exactly.
And I guess really for me, it starts with house music and the roots of house music. House music was created at a club in Chicago called The Warehouse by Black queer men as a safe haven to fully express themselves in a way that they didn't feel they needed to be, afraid to be themselves. And the music definitely showed that. Bunch of leading founders in there. And then you get into the different genres from that, which, techno, acid house, really any version of house comes from the original Chicago house. And just, it was, riddled with Black voices and Black people taking up space in those areas. Gary Chandler, Larry Hurd, Jeff Mills.
And Larry's a Memphian now.
Larry is a Memphian,
which is pretty cool, man.
Blows my mind every day.
Right.
I think I'm doing something right to be here and have someone.
And if y'all don't know Larry, check out Mr. Fingers, do your research.
Mr. Fingers,
is a Memphian, and we're happy to have him. But
absolutely, just those people, and I'm definitely probably spacing on names of
sure.
more prominent individuals. Underground Resistance, that's another big conglomerate of like Detroit techno that I really looked up to and just listened to their voices and stuff.
Give me a time frame, like when would this have all been?
So most of this started, I want to say, late 70s, early 80s.
Right. That was my understanding.
Yeah, so that was like for the ground roots of Chicago house kind of really started around that time. And then as time progressed and we got into the 90s, we started getting more aggressive styles of it, which, it derives from that Chicago house. So we got Detroit techno now, and that's kind of etching into like the late 80s, like 1989 to, 1990s to early 2000s. And then that's when I think electronic music started to hit like a worldwide phenomenon tip where a lot of different people were understanding where this came from and really trying to make it themselves. That's why we get UK house and UK garage and techno from England and Berlin.
And probably around the time where it started losing its blackness. So
yes, it started losing its original.
The scene became worldwide, which is great, but I think
a lot of the history was lost in translation during that big boom of the exposure of it. So and thankfully now it took me a while, because when I started doing electronic music and when I started really just trying to get into it, it was kind of hard for me to find Black artists. I wasn't very historian at the time when I was trying to, learn about the music and make it. So most of the people that I were looking at were white bodies. And they made good music.
Sure.
But it wasn't, I did feel like a bit of a disconnect because I didn't know where it came from. I thought for a very long time when I was younger that, white people created this for a while. And it took a lot of research and it took a lot of watching documentaries like Paris is Burning. And
which I just watched.
So
within the last year. It is so good.
It really popped me. It really bonked me on the head a little bit about hey, this is where this comes from, and these are the bodies that created this, atmosphere and this environment for dance music. And there's a famous song, Can You Feel It by Larry Hurd. And there's a whole spiel. Most house songs have this thing where they're just really aggressive music, but there's just someone making a speech over it. Anywho, in the song, it's like house doesn't belong to one person. House doesn't belong to one singular body. It was created by Black people. But what I love about it is the fact that it's universal and that so many people can appreciate it and enjoy it. But that can also be a double-edged sword. Case in point, you know, how most music now that's electronic, we get the EDMs, we get the dubsteps, and we can go into that later, but you get those genres from the original, but nobody's looking at where the history comes from. And I mean, if just like I said earlier, you got to know your history to know where you're going in your music. You got to know the fundamentals. You got to know where they came from, and you got to know that that's why I'm like preaching hardware to myself now, because most of the Larry Herds, most of the Jeff Mills, most of Underground Resistance, all used hardware, all used synthesizers and beat machines.
Right.
Like I was using the Roland TR-8 and the Roland Juno DS. Those are those two instruments that I'm using in most of those videos. And they're really good. And I really appreciate that. Like I'm getting to the point where I have kind of not technically surpassed making music on a computer, but I've grown away from just like that being my main focus, like getting into the muscle memory of making music on a piece of hardware that's dedicated to a specific thing. So yeah.
Well, and both the sonics, the sound is great, but the physicality,
yes,
it's fascinating to watch. It's much more interesting than had you been.
Yeah,
and yeah, watching you move around, realizing how many components, and like I said, it can be a physically as much as any live instrument.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about it is that it's not something to kind of look down on or frown upon, because it's still art, and it's still it takes just as much memory and focus to play those instruments or play those machines as it would for like an analog machine or something, or like a guitar or a piano. Case in point, like it's a synthesizer, but it still is a piano. I still have to know chords in order to play it, and I still have to know like my modes in order to record out a pattern so that the computer on board picks up on that and plays it back to me in time with a beat or something.
Exactly.
So yeah,
exactly. Beautiful, man. Well, on to the next one.
On to the next.
right, we are back. I'm Ezra Wheeler having a conversation here with Qemist for We Are Memphis Music. We are in the Memphis Music Hall of Fame, chilling on Jerry Lee Lewis's car.
So nice, y'all. I wish I could see this.
It's a pretty one, but
it's pretty.
Shout out to them. Shout out to John Doe for letting us use this space. We do appreciate it. Anyway, so we just touched on kind of the history of electronic music. Mm-hmm. Now let's bring it back home. I'm just kind of interested about Memphis's scene, past, present, future, and then just kind of, aside from yourself, who are some artists that if people aren't that familiar with Memphis electronic scene, who they need to,
for me, my timeline is pretty straightforward. From where I started, like really putting my nose and like putting my magnifying glass on what was going on as far as like electronic music in the city, I ended up working with this label called Rare Nudes. And that was like my first taste of like legitimate electronic music in Memphis, but they were internet based. So we did have like a lot of sectors all over the world. We had so many artists that were just like, from places that weren't Memphis, but the main focus was in Memphis, which was really nice. And I met like some lifelong friends from that, Minivan Marcus, MTV DVD, Dino DNA. Who else is there? There was Board Lord at a time. And we got some other, once that kind of like disbanded, and this is right around the time I was like 16, going on 17, I was really like just trying to like find my way. And I ended up again finding Future Everything. And they introduced me to some more people that were in my city, and were Black artists too,
right.
Which was really important. I met a lifelong friend that I have now, DJ Dance Alone.
Great dude.
Puts out great dude.
Great musician.
Honestly, it's so smart.
Yeah.
When I started making music, I was using tractors or tracker. It was basically math. It's making music with math.
Right.
And I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore. But DJ Dance Alone to this day, still like he bought a actual like a tracker that's like dedicated to making music on a vertical instead of horizontal. Anyway, it's a lot, but that's another person that I met.
That didn't mean a thing. That didn't mean a thing to me.
That's another friend that I met through this. Cell Shade is another person that I've met. Who else is there? There's Kame. Of course, Struli, Takal, Night Park. And these were all people that are just in the scene. Right around the time I was really just trying to like get my bearings. And I started working with a lot more vocal artists too. And that's how I met a lifelong friend again that I have, Suge, incredible vocalist, can really flow over anything that you give them. And I introduced them to Future Everything, and we ended up putting out a collaborative single on their comp. And that was like 2018, something like that. But really, for me, it helped me get my basis in, because when I started music, I was just trying to pick up any show that I could, being thrown on lineups that had no business with my name on them, because I'm the only artist of this genre here. And I kind of like broke off from that, and I started my own thing too as well. When I was 18, I started the Chemistry electronic music sessions, and that went for a while, and I met some really dope people, and I allowed myself to give other people space as well. That was, because at the time it didn't feel like there was any way that I could even create what I was trying to create. And I had to like suck it up and was like, all right, I have to be the promoter. I have to be the event coordinator. I have to be the artist. I have to be the guy who at the door. I have to make, I have to do all of those things. And it was exhausting, but I met some really, really dope people. Ant Walker, Don Twan, and these are just like old names from way back in the day.
I hope y'all out there are taking notes.
Yeah, do some research. It's here.
Make a playlist. That's it.
Make a playlist.
Let's talk about in terms of a scene. We obviously do not have and I want to talk about this, what Memphis can do better. But in terms of a venue infrastructure, just physical places to play, I think we can both recognize we're a bit lacking in that. But who are some spots that are you would give credit for trying to foster electronic music here?
So gotta give it up to High Tone. Shout out Skinny, because we, when we didn't have any space, we got that small room in the back of the old High Tone, and we would play there on like weekdays. And Skinny didn't charge us a cover or anything to play out there, and it just really helped us start to build ourselves up a little bit more. Growlers is another spot. We've done most of the Future Everything like artist showcase at Growlers. Of course, the Complex, owned by Tone, they've been pivotal in like supporting Black artists in any fashion and in any discipline. So I appreciate them. I'm probably spacing. There was the old Crosstown building before it got rebuilt into something. That Crosstown Arts, that big white room.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I remember those days.
Yeah, good days. Easily packed out, which was nice. There was Canvas for a little minute. Canvas is a cool place. We did a couple of showcases there just to get our footing somewhere. But our last showcase before the Panini hit was supposed to be at Growlers and that was like, dang, 2 years ago or a year ago or something like that. Yeah. So that was supposed to, our last official showcase before everything went to crazies was at Growlers. So
and I was at that show, and it was a great time, and I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Shout out to the club owners hosting the electronic music.
Thank y'all.
The rest of you, open your damn doors.
Open them up.
Open them doors.
You're missing out.
That's
bringing money. Sell out a bar real quick.
Let's show them what they get if they book you, man.
Hey, next one, please.
All right, we're back.
Indeed.
It is bike night on Beale Street, so we apologize for any ambient grumbling you hear in the back, but it is what it is, man.
Overly loud speakers,
That's it. So we just kind of touched on. We passed out our flowers to the folks in the scene who are doing their thing, just as a journalist and also as a representative of We Are Memphis Music, I think a thing that me personally and us as an organization are really interested in and dedicated to is helping improve the scene in whatever way we can. So, especially with electronic music, what resources do you think the city could provide, whatever that means? But what's missing from the scene to really make it as big and vibrant as I think we both think it can be?
So something that all scenes really require, and I've noticed because I've traveled to different states and different cities over the course of my career, and one thing I've noticed is that most scenes, especially with electronic music, usually have a dedicated space or a dedicated club or a warehouse or something that allows people to know who are actually looking for it, who are actively seeking out that sound. They know where to go for it. Because nowadays it's very nomadic, especially with electronic music in Memphis, particularly, it's very nomadic. So we might be, like I said, we might be at High Tone one night and then, that doesn't work for a while and we might be at Growlers and, we just keep jumping back and forth, and all of these venues have their own characteristics about them. Some may be good for electronic music, others maybe not. But another thing that that one thing I feel like right now would be a dedicated space. Obviously, we need a little bit more money, because we are doing it for the love.
That is not electronic music specific.
No, that is not. Everybody needs a little
bit.
But if we're talking about in terms of electronic music, all that hardware was not cheap. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm not expecting people to pay me because I bought this stuff. I'm expecting people to pay me because I'm giving them something that they can't get anywhere else.
Right.
They can't find the sound anywhere else. And I really do take pride in that. But really, we do need a little bit more infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean just like, solid four walls. Electronic music is very low maintenance. We don't need much, Give us a warehouse and a bathroom and we'll give you the best show you've ever had in your life.
But as we discussed, this came out of literal warehouses.
Yeah, literal warehouses, spaces that, were ultimately abandoned and people kind of weren't picking up on those spaces. Give us those spaces or give us a dedicated space that we can perform and we can build a legitimate community around and, not necessarily have to hop too much around. And really just a little bit more of them write-ups, a little bit more of these things that we're having right now. Would be great because it puts a spotlight and it really makes it easier for the individuals who are looking for this, Like I can't count how many times a month I get DMs about like, hey, I heard your interview here or there, and I wanted to talk about, where your next show is, or where can I find this music? Because this is stuff that I've been, I moved, or, just for example, people have like moved here, and, they're from places where electronic music may be like really prominent, like maybe New York or LA or Detroit, Philadelphia, any of those places, Baltimore. And they come here, and it's obviously different. And they can't expect the same thing, but they should be able to find something similar to it. And it's harder for them to do that. And it kind of stems from lack of publication, lack of notoriety, lack of infrastructure, or, safe spaces for us to do that and not have to hop around. And, lack of money, but yeah, all those things really kind of like create this perfect stew of oppression.
Right. No, I fully agree. And I think one of the further downsides, obviously, is without that space, people don't know what a wealth of talent we're sitting on in this town.
Absolutely.
I didn't. I started to learn over the last few years as I made it a point to learn, but I'm learning right now.
Yeah, that's what this is about.
Just because we don't have an electronic music club, don't get it twisted.
Yeah,
the scene is here, and it's hungry for a space, and hopefully sooner rather than later we'll get it, man. Well, let's visit one of the spaces we do have. Huh?
Yeah, one of the.
Where are we headed now?
I think
back to the studio.
I think this one is at Struly's studio, which is a beautiful studio. But yeah, I did, I think 3 out of the 4 or 3 out of the 6 recordings at Struly's studio, and it was really nice. So we'll get into it. I'll stop talking.
All right.
You can
Back
have
to the
at
music.
it. Once again.
All right, man. So we're going to start wrapping things up. But before we do, my last question is just a bit about the process. How do you build? Do you use samples? How do you make music?
Before I get into that, I want to shout out my homie DJ Luke Kang. I forgot about him in that plug. He's a really dope, amazing DJ. Just wanted to, and a producer. He's getting into that hardware thing too. So shout out to him. Right. But my I guess process would be I listen to a lot of music. I probably listen to like 6 to 8 hours of music a day. And I just go through, things that I like. I listen to country sometimes. I listen to a lot of drum and bass. I listen to jungle. I listen to all these like different styles of music. And it is really like my earlier days was heavily sampled. Because when I was making footwork is a sample heavy genre of electronic music. So you're finding like old French house or old French jazz or some type of like really soft melodic symphonic thing where you can just kind of rip off or derive a piece of that from make that right. Derive a piece of that music from maybe like a 4-count loop and create a loop and then build upon that. But lately my process has been I'll turn on all of my gear, get my little tea ready or whatever, and I'll go in and I'll start with a beat. I'll just lay down like a simple like pattern on my TR8, and I'll work off of that, and then I'll start adding like chords to the actual piece. So I'll use my Juno DS to lay down some polyphonic chords, and then go from there and just have those recorded into Ableton. So I'm recording as I'm going. And then if I like something, I'll be able to like clip it and be like, all right, I want to build off of this. So I'm really resampling myself once you think about it, where I'm just like, I'm going in and I'm building something, and then I'm taking what I built and then I'm building something different from that. And then with Ableton, I'm able to kind of polish up some things and add some effects here and there, and ultimately come out with something that I like. And all producers know that you have multiple versions of the same song. You'll be like, okay, this is the final version of this song. Wait, no, I hear something I need to change. All right, this is version A, version B, version B2, version B3, right. Going down that tunnel of like production. But lately my process has really been just listening to hours of music, no matter what it is. And because I play piano, I love listening to like pieces that are piano heavy because it gives me an idea. Lately, I've just been listening to a lot of Roy Ayers, sure. Classic stuff. I've been listening to a lot of Al Green lately, Mindsign, just artists that really they're not electronic. They're very like soulful, but their production, their value in their production and like their piano and stuff really inspires me to kind of like incorporate that particular soul vibe into the music that I do, which is why most of my like the stuff that you've been hearing on these videos, they're very melodically heavy, right. Versus like being just very technical and like hard hitting. I wanted to make that music as simple and as true to me as I possibly could at that time. So most of these like cuts and stuff are very like really melodic, but like they're on a loop. So I have a pattern sequencer on that Juno DS that I just have like, I'll set it for eight measures, and then it'll loop those 8 measures that I just like played out. And then I'll start adding like my love for house music, which is that 4 on the floor, and the hi-hats and the cymbals and a couple of toms here and there. And that's really how I've been building my tracks lately. But yeah, that's been my process for the most part. So
yeah, cool, man. Well, this part of the interview, what have you been doing? What are you about to do? How do the people find you? All that good stuff.
So y'all can find me at I am Qemist on Instagram. I am Qemmy.
Spell it.
So that's QEMMY with an underscore at the very end of that. And you can find me on those socials. You can find me on Facebook at Qemist. That's QEMIST. You can find me on Twitter, although I wish you wouldn't because I'm a fool on Twitter, so don't even think about it. I'm just kidding. But you can find me at the same handle. It's QEMMY why. Kimmy was taking on that. So
fair.
But yeah, you can find me on all of those. I'm on all streamers. So, give me the mechanicals, help me get some money. And that is at Qemist. Again, Qemist on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, Napster, if you still use that, LimeWire probably, all of those. I got a couple of showcases coming up. I just had an interview on WYXR with Ross Devlin for Thrust. But coming up, I do have the Tone Juneteenth celebration. I will be performing a set there.
That's this Saturday.
This
correct?
Saturday, it's
Yeah.
open to the public. However, you need to RSVP. So go to the Tone's website. You can go to their Instagram, Tone Memphis, RSVP for it there.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really fun.
What time do you play? Do you know?
Don't know yet.
Just go see everybody.
You know what? Yeah, have a good time. There'll be some food there. It'll be outdoors. We'll have some fresh air, familiar faces you hadn't probably seen in a long time. So yeah. And yeah, I think that's all on my list of things. I got some music coming up, but I can't talk about that right now. So stay tuned on that. I just signed a sync deal with Crosstown Music. So if you're into that kind of thing, you'll probably see my music in a Target ad eventually. Fingers crossed.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's really what I got going on.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a real pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you for being here with me.
I appreciate you.
Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you for giving me the space to talk about my art and just my music and like really, doing your part in uplifting these kind of voices.
Hey, it's what I'm here to do, man.
I appreciate that.
Thank you again. We've got one more track for you all before we let you all go. Everybody out there in internet land, thank y'all for tuning in, hanging with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And like I said, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Cool.